So basically, first let me just express how happy I am to be with you today, how overwhelmed I am to be part of the very eminent scientists and policymakers that had the chance to give this lecture. So I'm really grateful to my dear friend Tomia, but also all the colleagues in the Swaminathan organization that are really following up with development and following up on trends and following up on both challenges and the promise of doing better in the future. So the presentation is titled Feeding the Future, Building Resilient Food Systems through Science, Scale, and Partnership. And I want to really focus on how could we do it through science, how could we do it through scale and partnerships. I think really the Swaminathan, Dr. Swaminathan has put the foundation for everything we are doing. He is rightly so very much known for the Green Revolution in India, which was basically the biggest hit or the biggest success when we talk about Green Revolution. And his say, thinking of the future today and tomorrow, must be not in conflict, but with each other. And that's what he calls sustainable development. It's a very important statement. It says that as we are thinking about what we are doing today, as we are thinking about tomorrow, economists will always draw you towards trade-off. But really, he is saying that, no, we shouldn't be so much in conflict, but we have to look at how could we really do things that are positive for today and tomorrow. And that's the sustainability link between today's challenges and the future challenges. If you talk to foresight people, they will tell you, yes, the way to do it is to project yourself in the future for as long as you can. The most known one is 3 horizon over 30 years, and then you backcast it to come back in today. And that's why do we need science today more than ever? How could we have that sustainable development that Dr. Swaminathan talked about much before everybody started talking about it? How could we have it? And I think the only way for us to have it is to bring in more science to bear. It's to bring in more evidence to bear. It's to make that strong linkage between science, evidence, and policy. And we need it today more than ever. And I think I don't need to preach to you. You know as much as I do how important it is for in terms of climate change and how much adaptation is at the heart of everything we need to do in agriculture. We know about the land degradation and the numbers are scary. So there is an urgency to act quickly. And of course, beyond all of these things, it's really malnutrition and the number of hungry people that is on the go, it's growing since 2017 as a matter of fact. With some fluctuation, but the trends, it's not going down, it's going up. And within that spectrum of almost a perfect storm, multi-challenges that are very interconnected, the only way out is really science and evidence. And that's where science is not optional. Science is a must at this case. It's the only way for us to really transform our agri-food system towards more resilience, more sustainability, more inclusiveness, and particularly more efficiency as well. So the role of science is to help particularly smallholder farmers. It's very important. One reality that is facing us all as scientists and as science generators is that unfortunately we have a lot of solutions that are not making it to the farmers, particularly the 550 million small-scale farmers that needs it the most. So definitely science could and should help small-scale farmers to produce more, but produce more sustainably and develop also resilience within those communities so that they are not continue to be the most vulnerable to the climate change. that's where for CGIAR, and we have it across all our work, working for small-scale producers, small-scale farmers, small-scale fishermen, small-scale foresters, small-scale herders, it's very important. The small-scale producers, I mentioned the number 550 million farmers, but also what we need to know is that they are still producing 1/3 of our global food, and yet they are very vulnerable to climate change. Within the CGIAR, we are famous mostly for our genetic work, but also our policy work and other work, agronomy work. But really the way that we are really trying to prepare the small-scale producers for the future, it's through really to adapt to the extreme climates. It's through climate-resilient crops. So we do a lot of work in terms of genetics to do both, to do across the crops, but also the fisheries, the fish, the poultry, the livestock as well. We are doing resistance to drought, resistant to heat, and resistant to salinity. And as we know, those abiotic stresses are very complex genes, and normally they are quantitative trait loci that we are looking for. And we do a lot also on resources management, particularly water resources management, but also land management. So those two are very important. So the climate resilient crops or animals and other species through genetics, but also the water management techniques and the land management techniques. And of course, it goes without saying, one of the major issues with the climate change going forward, it's definitely disease management. So I think we all recognize, and Dr. Soumya Swaminathan will say it for also human viruses or pathogens, they don't have any borders. So as the planet is heating up, as the climate is changing, the movement of pathogens, the movement of viruses, the movement of microorganisms going to change. And that's going to come with its own challenges, particularly around pest and disease management in the agriculture sector at large. And within that, and when we talk about sustainability, we can't really miss to really clearly state that if we want a sustainability, if we want a resilience, the new methodologies around the regenerative agriculture, conservation agriculture, agroecology, all of those approaches are very important. So by the end, how could we grow more food more sustainably? How could we do all of this in the era of a climate change? It's very important. I want to just clarify also the importance of malnutrition and the health. And within the health sector, in the early 2000s, there was a lot of discussion on the One Health, but it was looking mostly at zoonosis, from animal diseases to human diseases and what's the relationship. But I think really over the years that One Health concept has been really broadened to not look at animal health and human health, but also to look at environmental health and where the agricultural sectors come. And within that, really, I think food as a medicine, or you are what you eat, that we all have been hearing, and that is part and parcel of the Indian culture as much as it is from the Moroccan culture and the other cultures. I think really since early 2000, when we started the Harvest Plus program, we have since then mainstream really nutrition in all of our breeding programs. So some of the wonderful breakthroughs is the low GI rice. That's it's a game changer, sincerely, for prevention of diabetic, particularly type 2, and as a matter of fact, only type 2. So that's really a breakthrough that really could make a huge impact on people, knowing the importance of rice in many cultures and many households. Iron biofortified beans. So we have the Pan Bapra network that works in East Africa, and now it's expanding to the rest of Africa, that have reached millions and millions of farmers, and that will help us definitely to reduce or hopefully eradicate anemia in women particularly. But also there is the new varieties of potato with very high iron that could make a huge difference for people that eat potato, like in the Andes, in the mountains in Peru and Bolivia and that part of the world. On that as well, we have Victoria potato that is bringing an annual benefit of about 42 million in only Uganda. And in all of this, what is important for us, it's to link up all of them. It's link up productivity for income with nutrition for health, with adaptation to climate and building resilience given the climate variability. Within all of this, I think really you are as excited as I am as a scientist with all the development in the digital era. So if we look at many areas of science, I think it's an explosion of the beauty of science, because there was a lot of development that happened in the last few years that make things different, that hopefully will allow us to bring more solutions than we did in the last 50 years. And I'm sure Dr. Swaminathan and Dr. Borlaug will be so happy to see that really the way we are impacting positively, of course, in a positive way, the farmers and the farmers' lives and livelihoods could be accelerated with science. One of the areas is definitely digital and AI. So in the CGIAR, we have started an initiative back in 2019 called the Big Data. And the why it was started at that time is that we all recognize that we are sitting on a lot of data, but we are not bringing it together. Our data, it's not interoperable, it's not speaking to each other. Of course, the data was and will continue to be the basis of all our scientific programs, and scientists and program managers are using it within the program, but we don't have enough interrelation between the different data sets. So since 2019, we have done a number of initiatives that brings data together. And one of the latest excitement is that we are developing what we call an agri-LLM. It's a large language model that's going to be a kind of an easy way for farmers to find information using a very easy tool. So we are putting in place this new open access AI-based large language model for agriculture with the United Arab Emirates, with the Gates Foundation, and with many other partners, particularly organizations with a long track of use of AI for health or for governance or other issues. And we are really very happy about it, because this is bringing all the data of CGIAR and partners in one place in an open access way, in a way that will allow, hopefully, extension services, policymakers, but particularly farmers and farming communities to take advantage of the 50 plus years of data of the CGIAR. And within that, really, it's a big network that we want to really put in place, bringing in academia, bringing in national systems, nurses, bringing in small and medium enterprises, as we are seeing a lot of youth getting interested more in data and in digital tools to really give them not only an opportunity of work, an opportunity of innovation and creativity, but also bringing positive impact in access to knowledge and access to technology to the small-scale farmers. So in that space, we are starting different hubs. Like we are starting a hub in Malaysia with the Worldfish colleagues that's going to be very specific for the fisheries and fisheries management. We are starting a hub on livestock genomics in ILRI that was already launched just before the Science Week. And we are doing different hubs. So it's going to be a different network of different hubs of innovation using AI and digital to spread the knowledge, to use the knowledge, to bring more data together, to support the right investment and the right policy decisions. And within that also, we are working with Google and with Amazon on a community-driven citizen science initiative. And the example that we are starting with, it's water quality monitoring, using citizens and using the information from the people to understand better water quality, water quantity, water issues, and water scarcity, etc. One new area also that we are really very interested in, and the reason behind is that unfortunately, based on the data of the world, when we talk about refugees, when we talk about conflict zone, when we talk about reconstruction and post-conflict, most of those communities are in drama, and they are in a very difficult situation, not for weeks, but for years. And it's really heartbreaking to know that whenever a war starts or displacement starts for other internal issues, political issues, climate-related issues, it's not something that gets resolved within weeks or months. It takes really a very long time. And within that, we have started about 3 years ago a program on fragility and vulnerability and helping communities in those situations. And we start working with UNCHR. We start working a little bit with UNICEF, with WFP, looking at how could we as CGIAR help those communities to produce their own food, to stop being really more vulnerable in terms of at least food security and nutrition security. So within the new program, what we are doing, it's really expanding that program, because we saw a huge impact, like in Sudan, in the latest war that happens in Sudan, but also in other parts of the world. And now what we are looking at, it's a kind of a regional also support, that, for example, for the Sahel region, or also how could we bring in new technologies where you get high density nutrition production systems in a very small areas with very little resources. Many of the times of these communities, they don't have access to land, they don't have access to water, they don't have access to resources, nor technology. So it's a difficult situation and a difficult completely ecosystem and context. But given that we're going to be working with organizations that have been there for a very long time, not only UN organizations, but also NGOs, and that's what we saw in Sudan. In Sudan, everybody left, of course, because there is a war, and that's what happens in any war. But the local NGOs, the local people stayed, and those were the vehicle for us to work with them. So that's on the science. On the scaling, for the scale and the partnership, what I want to focus on is really what's in it in the new portfolio that we are putting forward, that will cover 2025 to 2030. And what we have here, it's really bringing all CGIAR together. So it's bringing the 10,000 scientists that work across the 13 centers in one single portfolio. And what we wanted to clarify or to put it together is to have critical mass. You want a critical mass in breeding. You want to have critical mass when you talk about agronomy. You want to have critical mass when you talk about, for example, policy innovations. So that critical mass happens when we bring all the centers together as one CGIAR. And we saw it in this portfolio. So we have 8 science programs that covers really the most important issues when we talk about transformation of food, land, and water in a crisis climate. So the first program is Breeding for Tomorrow. The second one is Sustainable Farming. We have Sustainable Animal and Aquatic Food, and this is a new area that we have been working on for many years, but what we are trying to put here, it's an emphasis on the need of more proteins, more micronutrients from aquatic and animal source food, multifunctional landscapes. We have better diet and nutrition, climate action, policy innovation, and food frontiers that include the conflict, but also include small-scale islands or small states or big ocean states as well. So those 8 science programs are very scientific, and they are really large at that scale. To put them in place, we are using what we call a program called Scaling for Impact. And this is one of the exciting areas that we are getting into, which is really working more closely. We have been working, but maybe a little bit remotely from the NGOs, from the development agencies to get to the millions, because we can't have impact if we stay in the thousand. We need to get to hundreds of thousands, millions of farmers, so that the impact is substantive. And to support all of this, we have 4 accelerators. We have 1 accelerator on digital and data. We have 1 accelerator in gender and social inclusion and youth as well. And we have a third which is capacity sharing. And the fourth one that changed from this slide is gene bank as an accelerator, given that the gene bank resources are important for all these science programs. So this is the most ambitious CGIAR program that we have put in place over the years, particularly as we are bringing one CGIAR together. It's about $6 to $12 billion to support 100 countries from 2025 to 2030. It aligns research with urgent macro challenges. So we are building in also flexibility to make sure that those challenges are well addressed and that as things change, we are ready to be flexible. It's multi-stakeholder input. Definitely, we are still putting the emphasis on the SDGs as our target is by 2030, and we're aligned with the target of the SDGs. Always smallholder focused, and it's about really going to scale. And that's why Scaling for Impact is a program that will bring all the technologies and the innovation and make sure they make it to the farmers' field. So one of the ideas that we are really building in the portfolio is that there is no one single solution that's going to solve it all. Not a technology, not a policy, not even a financial foreign finance in one area. It has to be a bundle of many things, bundle of a number of technologies. And that's why the science programs are very interconnected, and the Scaling for Impact brings them together. So you can't have a technology only in genetic without the soil management or without the nutrition. So it's all interconnected. So we are really using the bundling of technologies, the bundling of innovation, the bundling of policies and regulation that make the environment conducive for scaling and for positive impact. We are putting in place a very strong media program in terms of monitoring, and we are really very much context specific. So everything we do, and that's why we are very focused on certain countries. Yes, we are in 100, but the mega program is going to be in some of those 100 countries because the local adaptation, the local scalability, the local partners are very important. And the accelerator are very important because they are called accelerator because we want to do things much more quicker. In the grand scheme of things, we said we want to alleviate 182 million people from malnutrition by 2030, which is a very huge target, and all the programs are feeding in. So all of this couldn't be possible without a proper partnership, and I think really we don't stress it enough. Partnership is key. We can do things given the mega challenges, given the geopolitics, given the globalization that we have been living in for decades, given the interconnectedness of human being between us as we saw it whenever there is a dramatic or a pandemic or a war. So there is the interconnectedness, it's a reality. And that's where really when we talk about global issues and global targets like alleviating 182 million from malnutrition, we can do it without really very strong national collaboration, regional partnership, and global partnership. So, and within that, really the co-creation of the programs, I'm very happy that this program that I talked about has been developed over a year in collaboration with many stakeholders. And I hope some of you were with us in the Science Week, where we tried really to present the programs to the colleagues and continue to take feedback from them. It's a 6-year program, so we are really willing to bring in partners as we are starting to implement it. And all of this, it's the only way forward for us really to make sure we co-create together. What we do is context specific, and it is emanating from a need from the local farmers and the local community. Public-private partnership is a must. Private national development. We do see their involvement through foundation mostly, but I think if we're going to get to scale, the only way to do it is to bring in more public partnership, but also do it with a combination of small and medium enterprise that are led by youth at the local level. So when we talk about private sector, I always say the farmer is a private sector because he doesn't have a salary or she doesn't have a salary. So they do work, and it's based on their work that they have a livelihood. So they are private sector, and that's why you have to convince them. If a technology you want to scale it, you have to convince them that it's going to give them more income or more nutrition or a better environment. So you have to do that. And I think what we need to do is engage more youth at the local level, provide them with access to knowledge, including how to run a business, how to start a new service. And I know in India there is a number of really young people, girls and boys, that started really wonderful services to farmers, and farmers are paying for it because it does add value. So for me, the private sector collaboration means more collaboration with farmers, more collaboration with SMEs, but also bringing companies and seeing how we can work together in terms of pushing forward for more adoption of technologies, particularly some of the technologies that are going to make really a big change or a big impact on life and livelihood of small-scale farmers. We are putting in place a new model for much more stronger partnership with our array of stakeholders. What we want by the end is that CGIAR, as a science-based organization, really be the conduit of bringing the latest technologies, the best technologies to the farmers. So that scaling up that I think we haven't done so well on in the last few years is a huge gap. And as a science-based organization that has a footprint in about 100 countries that have very strong relationship with the nurses, but also with the communities, I think really it's our responsibility to really bridge that gap and make sure that in doing so, we are bringing all the partners around and that we have the mechanisms to really help those farmers to come together. I can't really close this lecture without really stressing the importance of policy. And I think really the private sector has understood it more than anybody else. So they have been always advocating, lobbying for certain policies and regulation because they know it's very important. You can't really have a successful initiative without the right policy support. And within that, for us, the International Food Policy Research Institute, but also all the centers that have a component on policy analysis, it's very important that we really bundle it together. And within that, we had great impact across the countries in terms of informing policy and providing information that really help policymakers to take the right policy decision and put the right regulation to put it in place. And within that, there is a number of programs that are new right now, that's like the periodic table of food initiative that aim to, with the Rockefeller Foundation, that aims to bring in more knowledge on what are the biomolecules we have in the food, why food react differently in different bodies. And it's a little bit the interface between agriculture and health in understanding better the pathways in our body and what kind of intake we need to have. We have also the Pan-African Bean Research Alliance that I mentioned, the PABRA, as we are really very, very happy with the reach that we had on that program. And there are a number of other programs that are mostly to provide policies with the right evidence. And within that, we work very closely, of course, with FAO, particularly in terms of data sets, statistics, but also policy analysis. And soon we're going to be launching next week or the week after, we're going to be launching the food policy report, the food policy research report that IFPRI is leading Within that, knowledge transfer is a key component. As a chief scientist of FAO, I remember with the countries, that was always a sticky point. There is a lot of barriers in terms of knowledge transfer or knowledge sharing, particularly with the least income countries and the global south. And within that, as an open an open aggregation, an open let me call it a global public good institution instead of open. A global public good institution of that CGIAR with 50 plus years. It's very important that we do what we can to make sure that the knowledge is in the hands of the global South scientists, the global South extension expert, the global South institution. So, as you know, we are going through a tough time with mega changes in terms of finance to ODA at large. And given the challenges, my plea myself have been for the last few years to all countries to put at least 3% of their GDPs in science, and particularly 3% in agriculture incomes in the science of agriculture or agriculture food and then systems. And I think as much as the high-income countries should do it, but also the low-income countries. If we don't invest in science, we don't have solutions for tomorrow, and we're going to be doomed. And that's where it's sobering to know that only very little money goes to agriculture. So if we think about, for example, climate finance, less than 3% of climate finance is in agriculture, whereas most of it is in energy. And in energy, we are doing great strides towards green and less polluting energy sources or renewable energy sources. Without in food, we are stuck and we are seen as the corporates, and there isn't enough investment in it. Just 0.8% of climate finance goes to smallholders. So 3% agriculture, only very small portion of it goes to smallholder farmers, because those smallholder farmers are sequestering carbon. Whenever you have an agricultural production system, you are sequestering as well. But because we don't quantify it, because we don't have a carbon credit around it, it does not benefit those farmers. So definitely agriculture needs to position itself as a solution to climate change, as a system that can absorb much more, and that absorption comes with sustainable agricultural practices like regenerative agriculture, like agroecology, like agroforestry. And for that, we need really to give the data. We need to quantify that potential. And I think there is a beautiful methodologies that exist. Last week I was in New York, and the X Prize was won by Mati Carbon. It's a company that is led mostly by India or Indian colleagues or Indian experts. And what they are doing, it's increasing the sequestration, the carbon sequestration of farmers. They are already with 16,000 farmers, but the idea with their X prize, it was a 50 million prize, will allow them to get to a much larger number of farmers. And the beauty of Mati Carbon is that what they are doing is that they are increasing carbon sequestration through a soil amendment, but then they are putting it in the market. So they are getting the money for that carbon sequestration, and they're providing the service for free for the farmers. So the farmers are not paying for the amendment, it's the carbon credit that is paying for it. And the farmers are increasing their productivity as well, because the soil, once you sequester more, you have water retention more, and you have less diseases. So it's a beautiful model, and I think that's an example of youth coming together, understanding the carbon, understanding the soil, and coming with a solution that could scale to millions and millions. So we can't really stand without acting right now. We need really to act as agricultural scientists, as agricultural practitioners, as people that work in the food, land, and water systems, to speak up. Because unless we speak up, the cost is going to be very, very high. And the cost, it's not only in terms of money, it's in terms of lives of people. It's in terms of lives of children. It's in terms of huge diseases and huge degradation and desolation for all of us. So I think really, in my view, it has to be a national priority in terms of rural development, agriculture sector transformation, bringing in the finance from the climate and being part and parcel of that carbon market. If I look forward, I hope Dr. Swaminathan is with us here, or Dr. Borlaug is with us, to tell us really how could we get out of all of this? How could we use our knowledge? How could we use science, scale, and partnership to really build our sustainable future that will serve not only people, but also the planet? I think really the key component in all of this is that we stay small-scale producers focused, because that is the community that needs the most. That's the community that is the most fragile. That's the community that were created to solve their issues. So for me, it is very crucial for CGIAR and for our partners to keep that in mind. And I think really Dr. Swaminathan's vision lives on through science, through scale, through solidarity. So let's celebrate together this positive message that we got from Dr. Swaminathan. And let's continue to really prioritize science, prioritize knowledge, prioritize small-scale producers, and prioritize what I would call solutions. So challenges are there. We need to take those challenges heads on, and we need to bring solutions, but bring solution at scale, because if we don't do it at scale, it's nice for a publication, it's nice for a lecture, but it wouldn't do the impact that we are all looking for, which is really helping others to have a better life. And with that, thank you very much.